You're listening to the Studyclix Podcast, your number one source for junior and leaving cert tips. We make exams easier.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Studyclix Podcast. Once again, thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
This week's episode is on a bit of a trickier topic. It's not as
This is a
easy
complex
as,
issue.
Yeah, it's not really just about how to study and different ways to get motivated. It's something that's
Quite personal.
quite personal, and it's something that I think almost every student deals with in some capacity.
Yeah.
So we're kind of going to split it into, the topic itself splits into two different paths, let's say. And so this episode is all about teachers basically, and not necessarily good teachers or teachers you like, because it's something that a lot of people have come to us asking for advice on how to deal with either a bad teacher or how to deal with it when a teacher doesn't like you. So we're going to go down those two roads, starting with what to do with a teacher who doesn't, let's say it doesn't seem to like you.
Yeah, you
Because
get
you
the
don't-
impression that they don't like you.
So yeah, first of all, I suppose, without sounding too judgmental, a good thing would be to check your own behaviour.
Yeah.
And is there any obvious reason why they aren't treating you properly, why they don't seem to like you? Does it seem like they're singling you out
Yeah.
in the class for no reason? No, I'm trying to...
you a terrible person.
Yeah. We're not going to try to sound like we're defending teachers the whole time, because we've also had our share of...
Dodgy teachers.
Yeah, so... But it is important to try to see life and school from the teacher's perspective. And if it's maybe that you are a more outgoing character and you like to talk in class, and then if that's disrupting the class, that might be a reason, for example. So do try to just be a bit reflective of the situation. Consider your own behaviour in the class. Is there anything that you might be doing there that would make them...
Be a bit standoffish with you.
Yeah. And if there is something obvious that stands out to you there, the obvious thing to do is obviously to try and see it from their perspective and try to imagine what you could do to make life easier on them, to make the classroom easier on them, without you having to change
Yeah,
your
don't
personality
change,
too
don't
much or
change who
anything.
you are. Maybe just reel it in slightly for a teacher that you think it might be having a negative effect on.
Yeah.
There's no need to go changing who you are.
Yeah, definitely not. And if you can't think of anything, which is probably the case for most of you, because I find a lot of people do seem to say, I have no idea why they don't like me, this is really unfair. So the best thing you can do in this situation is just laugh it off, really.
Yeah.
Because there's probably not much in your power there. There's not much you can do to change it. Some teachers just have a disliking for... Sometimes it runs deep in a family. If teachers are old enough, maybe they taught you your parent and they didn't like your parents, now they don't like you, or an older sibling. It can just run that way.
Some real Snape
And-
Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it's very unfortunate that some teachers do hold grudges like this, but that's just a fact and it happens sometimes. So, like we said, all you can do is just try to laugh it off, because you don't deserve that behaviour. If you haven't done anything to make this teacher single you out or make them treat you badly, then it's not your fault and you don't deserve
Not really
that.
nothing you can do.
And if you can check your behaviour and say, and like kind of tick all these boxes, well, I'm really respectful in class, I don't interrupt anyone, I try my best. If you can check your behaviour and tick all those boxes, then you don't deserve that and you are not in the wrong.
Absolutely.
So just laugh it off and say, I'm the better person in this
Yes.
situation. And
we're all human. I know the teacher has some kind of... They while you're in school, teachers have an authority over you and they can tell you what to do and all this, but at the end of the day, we're all human. So if you find that this is the case, just kind of have to think of it from a kind of a psychological perspective. Like, okay, they're being a bit weird. I don't know why. But just remember, if you, like Eimear said, if you tick all those boxes, you're not in the wrong. And there's not much you can do about it after that.
yeah, and it can be unfortunate, because then, of course, you might dread going to that class if they make you feel bad, or it might affect then how you learn the subject that they're teaching, because you can't concentrate in class because of this thing. That is when you kind of just need to rise above it and say, I'm not going to let this person get in the way of my education. I'm still going to do my best in this class to learn as best as I can. And if it gets really bad, I suppose you can try to confront them.
Yeah.
If you're that kind of person that is able to do that, then maybe at the end of the class say, I get the feeling like I maybe did something wrong. Can you tell me what I did?
Yeah.
Try not to get angry if you do go in the direction of trying to talk to your teacher about the situation. Don't start blaming them. Don't start being angry with them. Just calmly say, is there some reason, did I do something in this class? Why you're treating me like this? I feel like you're treating me differently to the other students, and I don't appreciate it.
I would really recommend that if you have those confrontation skills, it could really change.
Yeah, those kind of skills will stand to you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so. No, it's if you can do that, we'd really recommend it, because nothing empowering really.
Yeah, and otherwise you could maybe say it to a parent who can try to talk about it at the next parent-teacher meeting to get some insights on it.
Or if you have like another teacher that you trust. Maybe, yeah. There's people, talking to people, like always with any problem, talking to people really helps put things in perspective and gives you sheds new light on things. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you were certain in yourself that you were not the problem and that you were being a good, respectful student, then you don't deserve it and you can rise above it. Just laugh it off and still try to do your best in that subject.
Yeah, your education kind of comes first in this scenario.
And then on the other hand, try to consider that they actually might like you and that you're just seeing it the wrong way.
You just might be getting the impression that they don't because, I don't know, you take in people's emotions differently. You could just it kind of goes with anything really. You think for years you could think someone doesn't like you, but it's just their personality.
Yeah, or someone might have a angry resting face.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that they're a mean person, but they're not.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of teachers tend to because of course if you're a teacher you need to then you have to try and control the whole class, so a lot of the time you need to create a sort of not necessarily a cold persona, but a persona where you can take control of the class and that the students will respect you. So it mightn't necessarily be that the teacher doesn't like you, it just might be that they need to act a certain way to keep control. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure lots of you...
They want students to take them seriously, so they're not going to be goofy all the time. And
And it might seem like they don't like you, but if you are a good student in their class, then chances are they do like you, because students or teachers do tend to favour the students that try hard and respect the teacher in the class. So if you can do those two things, there shouldn't be any reason why they don't like you. And again, like we said in the previous point, if despite all of these things that you're doing, you still get the impression they don't like you, then it's their bad and not yours.
Yeah. So going on to the other end of the spectrum then, if you have a teacher that you don't like, or a teacher that you find is very poor at teaching their subject and you're not learning from them.
Everyone knows at least one, I think.
Absolutely. One of the first things you have to do, unfortunately, is accept it.
Yeah, you unfortunately do have to just accept that they will be your teacher, at least until the end of the year. So instead of moping about it and just always complaining that you have a bad teacher,
you're going to have to take responsibility yourself. Yeah. You're going to have to take things into your own hands. So to once you have accepted, that's the first step. The next is taking responsibility, taking action, like, right, okay, I'm not learning from this teacher because they're not effective or I don't like them, but I still have to do this subject for the junior or leaving cert. I still have to do well in it if I want to go on and do well after school. So you have to think, right, what is it about them that just isn't helping me, that I'm not learning from them? Is their teaching method wrong? Are they spending all this time on one particular topic and I feel like we're not going to get the whole syllabus done? So it's first you have to kind of act according to how you feel they're teaching. So figure out what it is you think they're doing wrong, and then
try to substitute that either yourself or with something else.
Yes. Especially, obviously, I think a lot of, if people have the means, the obvious things to do is to get grinds or to get tutoring. If you don't have the means to do that, you're going to have to teach yourself the subject.
Yeah. And you're a good advocate for that, Nessa.
I am a good advocate for that. I did have a teacher in a subject redacted. I have a feeling they're not listening to this, but I still don't want to say what subject it is. There was this one particular teacher we had, and I think the course had changed, that they'd been teaching for 40 years, and the course had changed so much, but I felt like they were still teaching a course that was so outdated. and they just, for a subject that didn't need it, they were teaching, like, they would just write out paragraph and paragraph and paragraph, and I was just like, this makes no sense. I'm not learning. The textbook was far too old. It was terrible. So I took it upon myself to get different revision books for this topic, and I just every night, instead of on top of doing, or like every night I took it into my own study routine to learn exactly what was needed. And it comes back to how you study again. It was mostly going over the revision books, then doing exam papers, going back to revision books, exam papers, so on and so forth. And eventually I taught myself the subject. The result that I got in the Leaving Cert, I owe completely to myself. It wasn't my teacher. They didn't help at all. So it is possible. Like, I didn't take grinds or anything.
And Studyclix, of course, is another thing. By just focusing on the
papers, our quizzes, our notes, our discussion boards, it's your online study buddy.
It's probably important too to try and see it from the teacher's perspective, even if you just really want to hate them and not pity them at all. There might be reasons why they're not great at the subject. A lot of teachers get thrown into subjects that they're not even qualified in because maybe there is a lack of resources or a lack of teachers in that school. Yeah, so it mightn't be their favourite subject or their main sort of subject, but they're then sort of being forced to teach it. So of course, that's not your fault that they're in that situation, and they should, in theory, act accordingly and just still be a really good teacher, even if it's not their subject. But it's just going to make your life easier if you do try to show compassion, try to see it from their perspective and think a bit more positively about it, or at least not think negatively about it. Try not to take it all out on the teacher and just throw loads of negative emotions at them.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to help the situation. Just, like we said, take it into your own hands.
Rise above it. Yeah, don't dwell on it too much.
And like, I think some teachers or bad teachers are only bad in a class that they don't like.
Right.
Because some teachers maybe mightn't be the most controlling or not the best at controlling a whole class. So if you have a particularly boisterous class, for example, with a lot of maybe messers, it might be good crack for you, but that might be really hard for a teacher to try and control, and then they can't teach properly in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And of course, again, that's not necessarily your fault if you're a good student, but try to show compassion for your teacher that way if it's a situation where you can't learn anything and they can't teach anything because the class is just a bit too hard to control. That's another reason why sometimes people can be bad teachers.
Yeah, it's another factor to consider.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to, when they feel like a teacher is not great, it can sometimes be a crowd mentality. You might have to share that opinion, or like lots of students might be of the opinion before you even go into the class, we're like, oh no, that teacher is terrible. It's really important to actually make your own judgment, because if you go into a class at the start of the year thinking a teacher is terrible, then you'll believe it too, even though they mightn't actually be.
Yeah.
So just because a group says a teacher is bad doesn't actually necessarily mean that they are. So kind of try form your own opinions, really.
Yeah, and this is when you can bring it back to the whole thing about students learning in different ways.
Yeah.
So a teacher might be really good for a certain group of people who learn maybe audiovisually, and maybe the teacher teaches in a lot of audiovisual ways, but then for the students who don't learn that way, they think they're a bad teacher. And it's then, of course, hard for the teacher to try and strike the balance where he or she can teach in a way where everyone learns. It is a hard task to do. So if you can kind of identify with your teacher that they're teaching in a way that doesn't suit you, maybe you can even approach them on it and say, can you try doing this in a different way? Or can you recommend a way for me to try and study this in a different way? Most of the time, the teachers, they're in their job because they like helping students. They like teaching students. That's why they did it. So if you show compassion, if you show that you do want to learn, they are going to be nice to you.
Yeah.
And even if it's a bad teacher, and like I said earlier, if you're in a class that they can't control and that's why they're bad, because they're not able to get on top of everything while controlling a class. If you can kind of show that teacher one-on-one, I'm a student who wants to do well and I really want to succeed in this subject, they're probably going to maybe not single you out and show you individual attention, but if they can see that they are probably getting frustrated with the other students who are being too much messers, being
Acting
too
a fool.
loud and annoying the class and disrupting the class. But the teacher is going to care more about the students who are also actively caring about the subject and doing well. So they will give you probably more attention and try to help you do better. So that is something to keep in mind, that if you show the teacher that you care, they will probably make more of an active effort with you to make sure that you're
getting the
succeeding.
education you deserve. And then kind of another important thing to remember is, like, I know a lot of time, I felt me especially, I just kind of wanted teachers to like me. And like to show them that I was trying to make their jobs easier for them. I wasn't going to be disrupting the class, but also, like, you're not going to ever be like friends with your teacher. You don't have to be friends with them, and they don't necessarily have to like you. The main goal is just to succeed in the subject.
Yeah. I think that's kind of all we wanted to cover in today's teacher episode.
Yes.
And hopefully,
I hope if you're a teacher listening to this, you're not feeling too attacked right now.
Yeah, we try to see things from sort of a neutral perspective in Studyclix and see why the teachers might be acting a certain way and then why the students feel a certain way. And the important thing is compassion and empathy and seeing things from different points of view to try and understand how you can personally move forward and still get the mark that you want. So hopefully with those tips you can take some positives away from that and see how you can move forward in your own studying life, and how to, if you have a bad teacher, how to get over that and how to still do well in the subject. If you don't like them, how to try and overcome that. And if you think they don't like you, again, how to try and overcome that or how to move forward.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I suppose that's it for today.
That is it for today. Before
we leave you, I must plug our social media. So if you like Studyclix and you want to be reminded of it constantly, you should follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat. We're on all the popular social medias. Thinking of getting us a MySpace page as well, because I'm down with the kids. So yeah, just search for Studyclix on any one of those. I post study tips, I post competitions, memes for the most part. It's mostly just fun stuff because obviously it's social media, like it's meant to be about the crack. And there's messaging platforms on all of them, so if you ever have a question, there's someone on the other end. So yeah, feel free to message me anytime on any of those.
Yeah, and if you want to give us some feedback on the podcast, if you want to hear a particular theme or subject, then you can also get in touch with us via email at info@studyclix.ie or message us via the site. And lastly, as always, we would find it so amazing if you could give us a review on wherever you listen.
If you do anything today.
Yeah, wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Acast, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is.
We're on all of them.
We're on all of them. You can keep listening to all our other podcasts. If you haven't listened to some other ones from us, we do have some great advice on all things study, all things school, all things exams. So
yeah, tune in,
and if you like what you hear, then please leave us a review because we would find that incredibly cool.
It would make our day. We always love hearing nice things. Who doesn't love hearing nice things about themselves?
Yeah, so that's going to be it for today, but stay tuned because we will have another lovely podcast coming your way very soon.
Thanks for tuning in. Bye.